Well, good morning and welcome to another CNC episode. My name is Robert and this is From the Woodshed. We're glad that you joined us today. So, I've been creating this series of small video clips on how to get some experience using your CNC machine. Because I know once you get your machine, you're ready to start making things. And so, the idea behind all of these videos is to give you a quick tutorial on how to use some tools and how to get the material on your machine and how to make something all in under about 30 minutes. Okay, so if you saw my video from last week, you saw me make a catch-all tray, and I think it was about a 9 by 10, maybe kind of a squarish rectangle tray, and we used one bit, 1/4 inch end mill. So in this video, we're going to do a little review of some of those tools, but we're going to use 2 drill bits, and you'll be able to see the difference. Okay, let's get started. All right, so in VCarve Pro, we're going to create a new file, and remember, it usually defaults to whatever the last thing you made. Get myself out of the way here. For this tray, we're going to do something that's, our material size is 12 inches wide, and it's about, let's go with 8 inches tall, and I know that it's 0.80 inches thick. Okay. We're going to leave the 0 position at the top of the surface, and then our XY will be in the center as well. And let's choose OK. So at this point, this is our platform in which to draw our tray. Okay. Just a quick note, if you don't have a mouse with a little roller button, you should get one. All right, because if you use the roller button, you'll be able to zoom in and zoom out on things, and makes things a little bit easier when you're designing. Okay, so when you see my screen get bigger and smaller like that, that's what I'm doing, is my fingers on the roller button and I'm just rolling it up and down. Okay, so we're going to be over here in the Create Vectors tools. Instead of the rectangle like we did last time, we're going to choose the Draw Ellipse. And once you select that tool, you do have an option of entering the exact size that you want. All right. Or the other option is to move your mouse onto your material and simply click and drag. Now, obviously, that's a pretty small circle. And the way you can adjust that is that if you click on it until you get these handles, and each of these corners will let you click and drag. The center one lets you move the entire object. The corner ones have you adjust. Okay, and the corner ones will expand everything and keep the dimensions. So the expansion is basically from the center. So if we were to click this one, you can see that it keeps the elliptical the same. However, if we were to click the side, you can drag it and only move the sides. Okay, just so you know. All right, and just like last time, we want to be able to center this tray in the middle. So we're going to use our alignment tool. We're going to center it right in the center. Okay. Now it looks like we've got just a little bit more room, so I'm going to make this tray just a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to recenter it again. Perfect. All right, so now you've used the ellipse tool, and you've used the centering tool just like we did last time. Okay, and then again, just a reminder from the last time, we used an offset tool to create a border. So let's go ahead and select what we want to offset. And we'll go down here to the offset tool. And we want to do this inwards. And I think maybe we want about a little more than a 1/2 inch of a border. And let's choose offset. And you can see that our tray is now created. And just choose close. Pretty simple. So that's all there is to the design portion of this oval tray. Now let's go up here to the top and let's switch over to the toolpath commands. And you can see now on your right hand side, you get all your toolpath operations. You do get to verify your material size. So if you click set up, you can verify that your thickness is 0.80. You're going from the center, from the top of the material, and so forth. Okay, so just choose OK. Perfect. Okay, just like last time, we need to create an indentation in our tray. So let's select the inner portion. We're going to create a pocket. And this pocket is going to start at the very top. And we're going to go about 1/4 inch. Let's go just a little bit more. Maybe let's go 28, just shy of 1/3 inch. Okay. Now I already have a bowl bit here. Let's go ahead and remove that. Okay. If you don't have anything here, just choose select. Okay. Make sure you choose the material you're using, and we are using hardwood. And I have a lot of the IDC woodcraft bits. And if you scroll down far enough, you'll see the bowl bit, and I have a 1-inch bowl bit. We'll select that. Okay. The nice thing about the IDC woodcraft wood bits is that all of the settings are already entered for you. Okay. You might edit those just a little bit depending on the size of your machine. Garrett from IDC Woodcraft does a nice job of giving you all the sizes that you need. And we'll just choose select. Get myself out of the way here. We can choose to run this in a climb direction, which means it's going to start and it's just going to go around and around and around. Or we can choose a raster, which means it's just going to go back and forth. Okay. And let's go ahead and go with the offset here, or the raster. And I like to do a profile pass at the very end. And that's just a little bit of a cleanup pass. And let's choose calculate. Okay. So immediately you can see that we go into the preview mode, and if you press play, you can see your bit going around and creating. Let's reset that, press play again. Great. If we can make that just a little bit slow in speed, you can actually see the router bit. It's going back and forth. Cutting out your pocket. And you don't have to worry about the edges so much, because remember that we selected to do a profile pass at the very end. And so the very last thing this bit is going to do once it's finished cutting out the pocket, it's just going to go around and it's going to simply clean up those edges for you. Beautiful. And now it's going to make the pocket just a little bit deeper. Speed that up just a little bit. Just going to let this run just so you can kind of see the progress here. And this is exactly what your router bit's going to do. And then when it gets to the bottom again, it will do its last cleanup pass all the way around. Perfect. And remember, if you use this little icon in the top right, you can rotate your object so you can begin to see how deep it is. Maybe you want to go a little bit deeper. Obviously, you can change that. Okay, now we need to cut out our profile. Let's go back to the 2D view. We'll select our outer line. And this is a profile toolpath. We want to start at the top. Our tool is, our thickness of our material is 0.80. And we're going to use a 1/4 inch end mill down cut. And right now it's set for 4 passes. I like to increase this just a little bit, just to take off a little less material. And it's a little bit easier, I think, on your router, which is okay. And then let's calculate, and let's take a look at what this preview does. You can see that it cuts out your material. And there you go. There's your oval tray. Pretty cool. All right, let's close it. All right, something that I think is important to do is to name your tool paths. We'll do that over here on the right-hand side. Okay, so here are our pocket. And obviously this is a pocket. If you right-click on it and rename, you can call this pocket or tray pocket. And I also like to include what router bit I'm going to use. So in this case, it's a 1-inch bowl bit. And then for our second one, this is our profile. So this is our cutout. And we're using a 1/4 inch end mill down cut. Okay. Now you can use any kind of nomenclature that you want for naming things. Okay. You know, this will make a little bit more sense a little bit later as you begin to put the tools into your router without having to go back and look and see, okay, now what router bit did I use? Perfect. So at this point, we're ready to save our files. We're simply going to click Save Toolpath. It's going to do our pocket first, and then it's going to do our cutout. You know, anytime you're removing material from wood, I think it's best practice if you do the most impactful thing that's going to happen to the wood. In this case, you're removing a lot of material from the center. I think it's best if you leave your material connected to your table for as long as you possibly can, and make the cutout of whatever piece you're doing the very last thing. Okay. It just helps to keep your material stable on the bed as your router is going back and forth. Okay, so we're going to save these two tool paths. We're going to call this oval tray. Put oval files. And let's just go with oval as the file name. And the reason that I like giving it like one file name, because when you choose save, it saved both of these files over here. Let's take a quick look. So you know it's an oval tray, and the very first thing is going to be the pocket. You're going to use one bowl bit. Okay. And then the second file you're going to use is obviously oval one is cut out, and it's a 1/4 end mill down cut. Okay. So now when you're getting ready to run your files on the actual machine, you know exactly which router bit to change over to. Okay. Just a little pro tip there. Okay, that's the end of this. We're going to close this. All right, and that's it. So you created an oval tray using 2 router bits, and it's going to take us about 13 minutes to cut this out. All right, so let's get over to our CNC, and let's actually cut out the project. All right, so here we are at the CNC, And we're going to get our material ready to put on. I'm using this piece of spalted maple. Now it's a little bit bigger than my material size, but you can see the outline that I'm going to be using for this particular project. All right, so we just need to find the center. I'll use the corners. And then we'll take a shot from the other direction. Great. So where those two lines intersect, that will be our center for our X and our Y axis, as well as for our Z. And so now we just need to get it mounted on our board. All right, and we'll use the tape technique as we did last time. I'll try to be quick with that. And that's simply blue tape. And we'll press that down. Perfect. We'll hold it down for just a second, let that glue dry. Only takes a second. Perfect. Next thing we got to do is put our bits up. We're going to be using our 1/4 inch down cut end mill, and we're going to be using the bowl bit. So I'm going to show you how we're going to change out the bits after the first run. All right, so the very first run is going to be with the bowl bit, and you can see it's a pretty significant size. But before we do that, we need to go ahead and center. And one thing that I've noticed is if you try to center your workpiece first with the bowl bit, sometimes you aren't able to get it in the, sometimes you just can't get it really in the center. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hand tighten this end mill just so I can get the drill bit down. It's just a little easier to manipulate this way. All right, that looks pretty good. Again, we just need to get it somewhere close on that X right there. And we're going to make sure that it knows that this is our X. I'm using my laptop here for this portion. I'll show you over here. Maybe we can get away from some of the glare. Not sure if you can see or not. Let's cancel that. But now that we have our Z in the right location, okay, over here on the right hand side, if you click 0x, we say yes, this is the X0, and then we're going to go, it's also 0y. Okay, now we have to set our Z0. All right, and we're going to use our touch plate for that. First, let's lift it up just on it, because we're going to be zeroing our material, or we need to zero the Z axis with the material. We need to make sure we put the right bowl in. I'm sorry, we need to make sure we put the right bit in. And then we'll give it a quick tighten. Just make it nice and snug. All right, and then let's go ahead and move our Z down, just so it doesn't have to travel quite as far. Okay, we're going to use our Z probe, connect our magnet. Need to tell the software that this is our Z. Have our X and our Y and our Z axis already. Okay, and the one thing I know about using a bowl bit is that they are very, very, very messy. Okay, so I do want to use the dust collector on this. All right, and this is just a dust boot. Okay, it simply goes underneath here, but as you can see, the bit isn't, or the bit is so far down that there's not enough room to put the bowl, to put the brush in. So what I need to do is I need to move. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit my Z axis and go up. I'm going to go ahead and put my dust boot on. It's simply just magnetized. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to my software and I'm going to say to move back to 0. Okay, so at this point we've got our machine loaded. I want to take you over to the software really quick and just give you a quick peek here. We've got our ready to control software up. We need to load the file, and this was the oval files, and there are two. There's the pocket, and then there's the cutout, which is the profile. So there's first tool, second tool. So let's pick our first tool, and now we're going to choose run on the machine. Okay, now it'll get a little bit noisy here. I'm going to go ahead and put our dust collector on, and you may be able to see a little bit as it runs through. Okay, so at this point, the machine is finished cutting out the bowl. Let me see if I can get you a little look at that. All right, and so we got a nice little bowl cut out here. And so we've got to switch out now to the end mill. So we've got to switch bits. So this is a little different than we did last time. Okay, you can go ahead and switch your bit where it's at right now, which is fine, okay, because that's going to be the XY position. All right, we'll be getting back to that in just a second. All right, but we're going to need to move this. We're going to need to move the router anyway, and I'll explain to you why in just a second. Let's go ahead and change out the bit. All right, so the same process as usual. Get our 2 wrenches on. Okay, we know the machine went back to the XY position in the 0. All right, so we're not going to mess with that part. What we are going to do is we are going to raise the Z, and let me get back to my software. Okay, we're simply going to raise it up, and we're going to move it to the right. And why am I doing that? Well, the reason for that is because since we're switching bits, we need to re-zero the Z-axis. All right, and I've moved it over to the right because this area is still flat. All right, this indentation here is going to give us a different reading, so we need to get to a flat portion. So we'll follow the instructions of the software, touch the plate, and we'll let this go down 0 itself. Now we've got our Z-axis done. All we need to do at this point is get our machine back to XY 0. So we'll go back to our laptop and we'll say move to 0 and move XY. And so now the machine will move over back to the original XY position, and it's back in the center. Okay, again, we had to use the Z probe to get us a depth of our original material size. Okay, we are going to go ahead and put our dust boot back on. I'm just going to double check that I've gotten this bit tightened enough. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm going to put our dust boot back on because this will make a little bit of a mess, but we'll see this end mill, move to the edge, and then go around probably about 6 times because I like to take off just a little bit of material at a time. Let's get our dust boot back on. Perfect. Let me turn on our... And let's go ahead and run our software. All right, so our machine is finished. Let's go ahead and raise our Z. And we can take a look. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a little bit of an edge there when we remove this, but it should come apart pretty easy. So let's get our chisel. All right, you can see we've got a pretty nice cut here. It's almost cut all the way through, which is nice. Just a little cleanup to do. But this spalted maple is going to make a really pretty tray. Okay, well, we've taken our tray out of the CNC. We've given it a quick little sanding. And you can see this spalted maple is just a beautiful design. You know, you don't always have to do a whole lot to wood if you use some of the natural colors that it has. I'm probably going to put just a clear poly finish on this and call it done. So this is a really pretty tray. So getting back to the actual build of this, if you remember, if you watched the first video, we did I believe it was a 9x8 kind of a square tray, and we used one bit. It was a 1/4 inch end mill to do the entire project, and that took us about 19 minutes to do. And you might remember that I told you in the next video that we were going to cut that time down considerably by changing bits. And so in this one we used a 3/4 inch bowl bit, and we used the 1/4 inch end mill. So the bowl bit obviously cut out the interior, and the end mill did the profile. But the big difference is, in order to cut out the pocket with the bowl bit, it only took us just under 5 minutes. So about 4 minutes and 48 seconds. All right, and to do the profile took about 2 minutes. So in its entirety, cutting out this bowl or this tray took 7 minutes. Okay, and if you want to be really honest, once you get pretty familiar with the software, you can actually create this actual design in under 5 minutes. So all in all, you know, you're probably looking at about 15 minutes total. Okay. Now the beauty about this particular tray is, if you use some larger size material to start with, you can take this same tray with the same tool paths. Okay, you can duplicate it a couple of times and then just simply resize it a little bit smaller. And so now you're going to have a set of trays, all out of the same wood, similar patterns. And so if you were interested in selling them, you could sell them as a set or you could sell them individually, all without having to do a whole lot more design or calculation. So that's one way to level these up into something a little bit more productive. Again, you don't stain these. You don't need to stain these. They're beautiful. The spalted maple is a really nice design. There is one other thing you could do, is you could add like these little cushions or these little guards on the bottom. I might put 4 on the bottom, 1 in kind of each corner, and then you can put it on your counter or your dresser if you're concerned about maybe scratching anything. Not necessary, but it is one more thing that you could add that a potential buyer might see as advantageous. Okay, or maybe for fun, you just include them and let them decide if they want to put them on or not. Okay, again, it doesn't take very long. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Again, the whole idea is that you can begin to use your CNC machine without learning everything about the software. Okay, my goal is to teach you 1 or 2 tools, maybe review 1 or 2 from the last time, and get you some experience using your CNC, because it isn't really until you actually start creating something and going through the entire process. You can create things in the software, and obviously that's a large component, but until you create it, and then until you put your material on the bed and you actually start to run the files, it isn't until then that you begin to understand the entirety of the process. Okay, and once you understand that, that's when you can begin to start becoming more efficient. Okay, because you'll find your own little shortcuts, whether it's how you zero out the Z, or maybe it's how you put your dust collection boot on, or maybe it's just simply how you put your material on the bed. Okay, all those things just take practice. Okay, the first 1 or 2 you'll do will take you a little bit longer to do. That's just how it goes when you're learning something. Okay, but as you get better, as you improve your own process, every time you make a new product, you're going to see that the time that it takes you to go through the design until the actual product is completed is going to be so much less. And that's the whole purpose of these series of videos. If you enjoyed this, I'd appreciate a thumbs up and a subscribe. If you have any suggestions or comments, please leave those down in the comments section. I read everything that everyone sends. I'm excited to keep learning about the CNC. I'm excited to keep teaching you how to use your CNC and maybe giving you a few shortcuts on how to improve your efficiency with it. Looking forward to the next video that comes out. We'll probably use 3 tool bits in our next one. Okay, we'll probably still create a tray. So we'll do a review on our oval or rectangle. We'll still use our offset feature. We'll still center everything, but we're going to do a little engraving on the next one. Okay, so look forward to seeing you there. In the meantime, I'm Robert, and this is From the Woodshed. See you next time.